Is it time? Yeah, it's time. Welcome to the True Craft Podcast. I am your host, Chris Farman, and I'm joined by co-host, Katy Noel. This time around, we are all about one thing: killer conversations with close friends about the state of craft. Oh, it's going to be good. I hope to open the box on fresh topics while honoring the path that got us here. Let's do it. Katy.
Hello, Chris.
What's going on today?
Well, not too much. It's just a nice day. What about you?
Same. The dog days of summer are nearly over here in Florida. School starts very soon for my children, and lots of emotions in the house right now. Lots of emotions. I will go out and say that the Farman children do not transition well.
What do you mean?
They don't transition. They don't transition to the car well if we got to go out to dinner. They don't transition going back to school or coming back from a vacation. They just don't transition. Some people in 2023, excuse me, in 1996, that would have been called spoiled. But in 2023, we say they don't transition well.
In their defense, I don't know how well I transition either, Chris.
It's okay. It's okay. We're all making it. We're all making it. So, today I want to get started. I want to talk about my journey today. I want to talk about my journey in entrepreneurship and what I've sacrificed and what I've gained from entrepreneurship, right? What I've sacrificed and what I've gained. And I think this can speak to all business owners and primarily our target audience, which is brewery owners, distillery owners, cider makers. But needless to say, entrepreneurship is tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot. And my journey started with me really having a lost identity and quickly my identity became this hardworking, want to build it and succeed at any cost kind of guy. And over the years, that identity has changed, right? And there's been some growth and there's been some loss and there's been a lot of things that have come about with this. But let's go back from the beginning and say that I worked my hiney off for the first 8 years. I worked really, 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 really hard for the first 8 years. And I would say I still work hard, but it's a different kind of hard.
Can you describe the distinction?
Yeah. So years 1 through 7, I was doing everything. I was the stopgap for everything in the business, right? And most brewery owners can relate to this. They don't usually last 8 years because they grew faster than that. But they did everything from even completing construction in some cases to brewing and cleaning and packaging and selling and then being out at all the events. I used to joke that brewery owners back in the like 2010 to 2012, they were the equivalent of rock stars because there weren't that many out there. And they'd show up to a tap takeover or an event or a festival, and they were like, people were just like swooning over them because they thought it was so cool to own a brewery. Mm. Owning a CPA firm is not that cool.
Yeah, Chris, you're not that cool.
I didn't no one swooned over me, I'll tell you that. And actually, I had a lot of awkward conversations early on because one of my realizations was nobody was serving the craft brewing industry. Nobody was serving them with care and love and attention, right? They were viewing them as this really confused restaurant that makes its own beer or bar that makes its own beer. And I understood what these folks were going through. I really understood it. So back to me and not, so I was doing everything. I was doing everything. And when you're doing everything for a fast moderately fast growing business or smart, fast growing business, it just takes time, right? And you don't want to mess anything up. You're serving a very tight knit community. They all talk. They all are in the same circles. They all know each other. And it just amazes me, the connections in the brewing industry, right? The random hat company, right? The company that makes the hats may know half of our customers at a very intimate level, right? So it's a super, super tight knit community. And I learned that early on, and I said, I'm not going to screw this up, right? So I'm going to take a lot of care and attention. And it just took a lot of time. The hardworking today versus then is I'm not doing as much in the business, and I'm doing more to help guide us to the next frontier, or guide us to the next breakthrough for what our customers really need. That's what keeps me up at night. Whereas 10 years ago, it was like, did I file that tax return keeping me up at night? What keeps me up tonight these days is like, are we innovating? Are we staying on the next level? Are we keeping any sort of quote unquote competition miles behind us because of our collective knowledge and our collective love for helping this industry?
What impact, if I can ask, Chris, do you think that shift has had on you and your family?
Good question. Very good question. So I'll be honest, my children kind of the three of them view me in different lights when it comes to the work that I do and the time that I spend at the computer. Early on, since I was working so much, I was really disconnected. I was disconnected from the family. It wasn't until I think my youngest turned 10 that I was kind of like, this is going kind of fast. And I don't want to get into the whole like, oh, life's so fast and they grow up so fast. That's all true, but it's different when you're living it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's different than when you're actually living it and you're like, oh, okay, I got 7 more summers, 6 more summers, 5 more summers, stuff like that whole mindset. So at that point, I started saying like, all right, I need to have an impact on my children. I need to have some sort of impact other than the dude that sits at the computer and is, and takes them out to dinner, right? That's not the impact. Wife and I definitely the business strained, our relationship, because I was getting so much validation and I was getting so many wins, growing the business, that it was, there was definite strains on the relationship, just for me not being present. And when I was present, just totally consumed with the business. Where I am today is I'm very grateful to have an amazing team, an amazing group of people that are willing to help. And I really believe we're all beating at the same drum. There's very little friction between the team, and we encourage friction. We want friction because that kind of questions what we're doing. And it questions our growth. What the impact has been on my family is, with the peace of mind that I have this amazing group of people helping grow this thing, is I don't have to be consumed with the day-to-day. And I know that if I set my schedule, that I'm going to work for so many hours in a day, and then I'm going to disconnect after and really be present for the family, that it is far more impactful than having a interrupted or non-focused work session and then being tethered to my phone during family session. Mm-hmm. So I'm just more aware of my presence today than I ever was in the past. And everyone around me is aware of it as well, right? Wife's aware of it, children are aware of it. It's so easy to get caught up in my phone and just scroll through emails, right? Not even social media time suck, right? Just emails. Just, did I reply to that email? Did I reply to this person? Was that good enough? Blah, 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 blah. So Today, I'm really trying to be present for family when I'm not working. I'm trying to set boundaries on working times. Summer's not easy with 3 young children. And any parents know that summer is not easy. Even if you have camps and trips and all that stuff lined up, it just isn't the same as during the school year. So been navigating that for the past 2.5 months, and that'll be over next week. Like, beginning of summer, I was like so stressed about the summer, but like, here we are.
Yep.
In 1 week exactly, they will be back in school.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. So when I look at it in that perspective, it's like more of I don't want to repeat the same, like next summer. I don't want to repeat the same early summer freak out, and know that this is time that I really need to invest in my children, invest in my family, and have a good time with them.
So, Chris, for brewery owners or other business owners listening, correct me if I'm wrong here, I imagine there's a piece of your experience that required giving up some amount of control. Can you speak to that experience? Because I think what you're saying is that it's important at some point to let go of some of that control over the business to also invest in your family. So what would you encourage somebody struggling with that right now? What would you encourage them with?
Sure. I am a control freak. I am a prescribed control freak. And I think successful entrepreneurs are, for the most part, have some control issues. Okay. And you can call it perfectionism, you can call it control, you can call it OCD, whatever, ADD, whatever it is. There's all sorts of labels, but at the end of the day, it's image, and it's being right. It's being right at something that you really believe in is what drives kind of drives my control aspect. For me, it was building a team, which like I said, most brewery owners, they hit that cliff of building a team by year 2. They just can't physically do it anymore. I mean, our work, Katy, is at a desk, and yeah, if I grind hard enough, I can work for 14 hours straight at a desk. I'm going to be exhausted, but 14 hours lugging stuff around and brewing and customers and cleaning is way different. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's a physical demand with craft manufacturers that we don't have in our industry. But I would say it's just good practice to start thinking about and dreaming about, like, what if I had this right person in the right seat? Just what if I could delegate these tasks? What if I could pass off some of my responsibilities to somebody who would take this off? Like, there's really twofold to that, right? So I get some of my time back to do what I want with it. And number 2 is like, while I think I'm a perfectionist, I'm not the end all be all. Like, somebody may have a better way of doing it, or take our existing process and tweak it to become more effective, or so on and so forth. So it's getting your time back. It's delegating. It's allowing other people to step in and really take that stuff over and just give you some of your life back.
It's hard. I picture some people listening being like, yeah, of course. And then other people like just absolutely cringing at the idea of navigating, giving up some of that control. Can you tell me why you think that might be? Like, what the driving motivators are, the fears behind giving up that control could be?
Yeah, for me, it was, like I said, it was all about getting it done right. And the customer image of the brand, the customer image of the deliverable we give out. And we are dealing, I mean, the work that we do is not life or death, but it's pretty important, right? We're talking about money, and we're talking about compliance, and we're talking about big decisions. So I wanted that stuff to be right. What I've learned over the years is that, it all has to be right. And if it isn't right, 9 times out of 10, it's not the end of the world. 9 times out of 10, it can be remedied. It can be fixed. And if we flip this conversation to producing beverages of any kind, right, the game gets a little trickier. The stakes are a little bit higher because you're dealing with a product that humans are going to ingest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're dealing with a product that humans are going to ingest, and it can make them either feel really good or feel really, really sick. So I would say, any of those sorts of fears on getting the product exactly right, the packaging right, the whole deal comes from process, right? And making sure you have quality control checks in place and processes in place to ensure that the product really doesn't go out in any form that's going to potentially injure people. We can come back to this in a second, Katie, but you were raised in a family of entrepreneurs, right?
In a sense. So my family came into the business that they now own maybe about 8 years ago.
Okay.
So wasn't like a little kid in that, but I was like teenager. Like my whole high school was my dad, being general manager of this company and then purchasing the business.
Okay. And has it been a grind for him?
Yes. It still is, very much so. I mean, the thing with being a business owner is that doesn't stop when it hits 5:30 p.m.
Right.
And especially when you have, as these brewery owners do as well, like storefronts. Like if there's somebody sketchy outside, you're the person who's going to have to go check it out at 3 a.m. Doesn't matter if you have a shift or the next morning at 8 or whatever it is. You're the ultimate person responsible for the success of the business, which is a huge weight. And I've seen my family learn and grow in delegating, but I think that's such an essential skill for running a business. If you can't delegate or you can't let some amount of things go, it's not going to help your business because you become the bottleneck to growth. But it also honestly kind of kills your family too, which it's getting kind of deep here because that's a big thing to say. But if you're dedicating your entire life to that, is that what you want to do? Is that right? Like you were saying, Chris, is that the impact you want to have?
Right.
And so just reflecting on that, I think is so important because it's easy to get sucked in, right? Because there's a lot of validation that comes with running a successful business.
There's a lot. And as the owner, as you mentioned, with all the responsibility, there's always one more thing.
Oh yeah. You don't run out of work to do.
Never.
That's what I always tell my dad. I'm like, just because it's Friday at 5 doesn't mean the work's done. It just means you're done working.
So is your dad dragging you to happy hour at 5 o'clock on Friday? And you're like, whoa, no, I got to count inventory.
No. And he's gotten better in the last few years at, stepping back and going on vacations and taking care of himself. But for a lot of years there, it really is dependent on the owner. It just is. And that doesn't completely change, but if you can build out a team to support you, so you're not, the business isn't going to crumble without you there for a week or however long. I think that's where the big win is. And the peace of mind for everybody involved too.
Yeah. So my family is a family of entrepreneurs. They are all accountants. They're all CPAs, and they had their own business for a long time. And something dawned on me at probably around 2010. No, it was actually earlier than that because I kept telling my brothers, I was like, my dad worked all the time. He worked all the time, which is what he had to do because that's just what you did during those generations. And I kept looking at my brothers and saying, look, for us to maintain this sort of lifestyle, for us to be successful, there's no way we're ever going to work as hard as dad did. We just have to work smarter than he did. Right. So same results, but working smarter. And I think that's just evolution in general. Right. I think my kids are going to work smarter than I did. They're going to use technology in more, and I use technology just in every aspect of my freaking life, but they're going to one up me on that. And that's evolution. And I want them to. I don't want them, to be held back by any constraints that would prevent them from doing better than I did. But I think looking at it, it is it's pretty eye-opening when you come to that realization that, okay, I know the quality of life that I want to live, and I know I don't have what's in me to work as hard as this person did. So I just have to work smarter.
It's a really honest reflection. Like, I don't know if everybody would just be like, yeah, this is what I have to do. I can't work that hard, so I gotta work smarter. But
yeah,
it's a good point.
I think for brewery owners and distillery owners, it's a lot, right? We as consultants and CPAs offer a service. Now the service looks a little different for everyone, but we offer a service. But as the owner of a brewery, to wrap your head around all the moving parts, like you said, that delegation has got to happen pretty quick, or you're going to go insane.
I have a bigger picture question tying into what you're saying.
Sure.
Can you speak, maybe this is too complicated, but can you speak to what types of things the owner should hold on to versus what kinds of things they should hand off? Or do you ever see themes in like, bro, you can't be doing that. Like, that's day-to-day stuff that you shouldn't be in so deep. Like, you need to have higher vision than that, or something to that effect.
Yeah. I think every owner, regardless of the business, would love to delegate, but I think the constraints around delegating, number one, are resources, right? Do we have the resources to hire all these different divisions and all these different managers and people that are going to take it over, right? Another constraint could be who the person is. Another constraint could be that they want it done a certain way, regardless of other people's inputs. And so that doesn't keep people around very long, right? It's a revolving door just due to, can I say shitty management? Can I say that?
Yes.
Okay. So if we have a list of what I think founders should be doing once they passed the plateau of doing it all, is number one, what do they excel in? Right? What do they absolutely excel in? And brewery owners back in the day were two partners. One was a brewer. They actually made the product. The other person was the salesperson. Right? And they each had formal training and they had experience in their different departments. I think founders should, once they start delegating all the stuff, well, a majority of the stuff off, should retain some of the things that they love to do. And that's going to come in the form of actually doing it. That's going to come in the form of training. That's going to come in the form of situational training, ride-alongs if you're in the sales side, just really getting fired up, because your experience and your drive there is going to be contagious. In my decade of doing this and thousands of brewery owners I've spoken to, I've met, I think, 3 accountants, right, that are brewery owners that have left some sort of accounting job to do that. So I would certainly say that if you're doing the books, so let me go broader. Let me go bigger picture for you. if you're a founder and you have the ability to delegate items and you're not delegating items, these are like temporary wins that you're filling in your emotional bucket, but there's really a hole in the bottom of your bucket and they're all seeping out. And what I mean by that is if you don't have an accounting background and you're doing the accounting, it's going to feel good to balance this or reconcile that or input a certain items, but is that truly the best use of your time? Right? If the best use of your time is motivating salespeople to get more sales, meeting with distributors, meeting with chains, that's going to impact the business a whole lot more than you doing some debits and credits. Right? So, brewery owners rarely do their own legal stuff. They always farm that stuff out. They rarely do their own graphic design, label design stuff. They farm that stuff out. They rarely do their own accounting. They farm that stuff out. They delegate it. But I would just go back to remaining relevant in your core competency, remaining plugged into your core competency. And then the rest of your time is spent on what's next. What's the biggest pothole in front of us and what's the next win in front of us? And how do I communicate this to the team and get everyone behind there?
What are some practical ways to maintain that mindset for somebody who might not be like naturally inclined to have that bigger picture view day to day?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think first and foremost, you need some sort of accountability, right? You need some accountability, and that's going to be some tough love accountability. I'm not talking about a yes guy or yes gal. You need some really tough love accountability, and this could be your director of sales. This could be your taproom GM. This could be your brewmaster. Is going to be tough. The personality of brewmasters is somewhat accommodating and more creative than your director of sales really is going to be the right one to do it. But some sort of accountability that either you're checking in daily or weekly and saying, I feel the urge to go back and count inventory. Okay. No, the sellerman, the packaging guy, those people on their downtime should be counting inventory, right? The founder should not be counting inventory. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure most founders don't count inventory these days, but if you do, you really need someone to tap you on the shoulder and be like, you shouldn't be counting inventory. So someone should be reporting inventory to you in a beautiful spreadsheet, but you shouldn't be counting inventory, right? So I think accountability is number one, and finding someone in the organization that can really insert that truth. Number two, what I would say is weekly leadership meetings, right? With those weekly leadership meetings, listening to everyone's focus of the week, you sharing your focus of the week, and making sure other people can hear it so they can hold you accountable, right? So if your focus of the week is to do some of your core competency tasks and then lock yourself in a hotel room for 48 hours so you can do some visioning work, that should be your focus of the week, right? Versus just doing your core competency work all week and really eating the hours away. So I would start with those two items. Find your accountability partner in the business. And second of all, weekly leadership meetings where you are stating what the focus of the week, everyone is stating what the focus of the week is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Deep topic today.
Yeah, running a business isn't a joke, Chris.
No, it's not. It's not. And honestly, I've run other businesses as side hustles, and I've gotten to the 50-yard line And I just put my head in my hands and said, what have I done?
In what way?
What's that?
In what way?
Oh, just, my core business, is what I'm doing here. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to start business with friends on the side, and I've tried to start, side deals with friends on the side. And you can't half-ass a business. You can't half-ass a side hustle.
Okay, this is interesting. So what would you say to somebody, and we've talked to a few people like this, who their brewery is their side hustle?
I'm shrugging my shoulders. For everyone listening on a podcast and can't see us on YouTube, I'm shrugging my shoulders. I think
is that a red flag for you, Chris?
It is. I mean, you have two options, right? You're going to end up closing the business, or you need the resources to hire the best of the best. It can be done. It can definitely be done, but you just have to prepare the bank account to hire the best director of operations you can find. Not you can afford, you can find the best director of sales, the best taproom GM, and then get them all syncing on the same page and reporting back to you. So 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work. But that 1 time out of 10 where you just have unlimited deep pockets, then it could work. It's just going to take a little bit of organization. Yeah, I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say we're in a spot because my kids come to me all the time and they're like, I want to be an influencer. I want to be this. I want to be that. This person made $1 million off this video. They made $30,000 off this video. And those creators it's not a joke, right? They're actually either grinding themselves or paying someone a ton of money to grind for them.
Mm-hmm.
So back to your point at hand, running a business is not a joke. It's not easy. No, it's not, or everyone would do it. Right? Everyone would have a gazillion business owners, and then it would be like weird.
It'd be super weird.
Yeah.
Some good stuff, Chris.
Okay. Well, let's wrap it up for today. I do want to get an owner. I do want to find a brewery owner to really get vulnerable with us on this topic. Do you think we can do that?
I would like to think that we can do that.
Okay. Yeah, I want tears by the end of the episode, and I want to be the one crying.
Right now, you want me to make you cry?
No. What I'm saying is, who's the interviewer that always makes somebody cry? Inside the actor studio? Is it wait, I don't know. Oprah, does Oprah make people cry? Dr. Phil? Dr. Oz? No.
You're asking the wrong girl. Yeah, I think that'd be really insightful because we can talk about it, but to actually hear from a brewery owner about their experience, like dealing with the stress of the business, but also potentially raising a family. Like that's big stuff.
Yeah.
That's your life. That's your whole life. If you're doing those two things, if you're running a brewery and you have a family, like that's it. I can't imagine there's much more. And not in a way where like you don't have other things in your life, but like those are taking up your time.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I look forward to that. If you're listening to this and you want to come talk to us about it, let me know.
We'll throw it out there. We'll ask a few individuals if they want to join us, and maybe we'll send them this recording ahead of time to kind of watch where we went with it. So it'll be great.
Cool. Well, thanks for your time, Chris.
Thank you, Katie. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the True Craft Podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player. And if you are just dying to know what Chris and I look like, you can head over to YouTube for a video recording of the show. Links to cool information about our guests and other fun facts can be found in the show notes.
This podcast is sponsored by Small Batch Standard, the premier financial agency built to serve the craft brewing industry. We help craft breweries grow profits through outsourced accounting, tax compliance, and growth consulting. Visit sbstandard.com today to learn more and request a discovery call.